Hi, everyone. How is everyone doing? Great. Okay, so 2 years ago, a very, very good friend of mine posted a picture on her Facebook timeline where she's skydiving. She jumped off a plane. And here I am looking at that, like I'm absolutely terrified of heights. So I thought, oh my God, she's so lucky. She got to experience that. I never will. And that must be so liberating and so freeing. I would love to do that one day. And that was like kind of a pipe dream, and I brushed it away and I didn't really think about it much again. And then last year, in December, or sorry, like a few months before December, I was planning my next vacation. And my vacation was 3 weeks, three weeks of biking and cycling and hiking in Sri Lanka, and then about a week in Dubai after that. So I'm an avid traveler. I just love travel. So I went to Sri Lanka, did my hiking and biking and everything, and that was all cool. And during my cycling vacation, I looked at, so I'd seen this video on Facebook about Skydive Dubai, and I looked at that video and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And there was actually a friend of mine, a new friend that I made on that cycling trip in Sri Lanka, who was a skydiving instructor. So she talked about skydiving again. I'm like, oh yeah, I thought about doing it once, like 2 years ago. It was just a silly dream. And she said, what's stopping you? Why aren't you doing it? I'm like, oh no, no way. Like, this is terrifying. I don't know. I'm terrified of heights. I don't think I can do it. She's like, well, what's the harm in trying? You might actually love it. So I started doing some research and looking into Skydive Dubai, and I realized that it was like, the safest skydive in the world, and it was supposed to be really cool. And every day I would go on the website, and right before I would get to the checkout page to pay, I would just quit. Because I was like, no, I don't want to do it. I'll do it tomorrow. Kept procrastinating until one day when I logged in, all the spots were sold out for that week. So that was like my very convenient cop-out. I was like, it's all gone, it's all sold out. I can't do it anyway, so I don't have to worry about it. So then I did my whole cycling thing in Sri Lanka, and I went to Dubai, took my dresses and high heels and all the the fashion stuff, and I was sitting at the beach, looking at the beach, and basking in the sun. It was beautiful weather, and I see all these parachutes dropping out of the sky. And I realized that Skydive Dubai, the facility, was actually right by the beach. So that's what I was looking at. And I was lying there and just looked, and it looked so beautiful, and like all these vibrant different colors, and thought to myself, wow, I don't think I can ever do this. And realized that where that was coming from was a place of fear. I was just really, really scared of conquering that fear of heights, of putting myself out there, pushing myself out of my comfort zone. And lying there on the beach, I started reflecting on my life and where I came from and who I am today. And thinking about, this is not the first time I felt fear. There are several times in my life, in fact, a long time in my life, where I felt really afraid to do things, but I did them anyway. So what were those things that worked for me? When I was a young girl growing up in Abu Dhabi, I was born in Pakistan, and then I was like a baby when my parents moved to Abu Dhabi. I was often told that my dreams were too big for me. They were not valid. They were not okay. It was, as long as they were dreams, it's fine, just don't expect them to come true. And I thought to myself that maybe that's true. Maybe, my dreams are not valid, and I shouldn't really, expect them to come true. But I still kept pushing and trying. So I would, start a girls' cricket team in my school when I wasn't allowed to go outside and play cricket with the boys. Or I started a little school newspaper to just discuss my ideas and thoughts and stuff. And then when I was 16 years old, in grade 11, my mom came into my room one day and said, Samra, there's a marriage proposal for you. I was, what? Mom, I'm in grade 11. And she's like, you know what? You have all these dreams of going to school and all of that. It's not like we can just send you somewhere else by yourself. You're a girl. Like, that's a no-no. No one in our family has ever done that. So this time seems like a win-win situation. His family seems to be very progressive. They'll send you to school, and we won't be worried about you that you're all alone by yourself as a girl. And I tried to resist, and I tried to say no, but every time I would try, I was told that I was being stupid. I was told that, you know, this is the box that I need to exist in. That's my real purpose of life, and should be my real purpose as a girl, to get married and, you know, to be a wife and be a mother, and that's the role that I need to fit in. And I'm supposed to be grateful that I'm the first girl among all my cousins and all my friends to achieve this accomplishment. So when everybody around you tells you that, you start to kind of believe it. And I started doubting myself and doubting my dreams and my ideas. And a few months later, just after my 17th birthday, I found myself sitting in a big grand banquet hall, decked up in red and gold, beside a man who was 11 years older than me. I'd never met him before, and he was now my new husband. A few months after that, I arrived in this big, beautiful, and very, very cold country as his wife. I became pregnant right away. I became a mom at the age of 18. And when my husband, when I was actually pregnant, my husband took me to the local school in our neighborhood. And the principal saw that I was visibly quite pregnant, and beside me was this much older looking man who she put two and two together, must be my husband. And she had this look of pity on her face and thought, you know, oh my gosh, poor girl. And she gave me this number to call because she said that I wouldn't fit into the high school environment given my circumstances. That number was for the Independent Learning Center. I called them, and the person at the other end said, so how old are you? I'm like, I'm 18. Like, so why aren't you in school? I'm like, it's kind of complicated. And he goes, you know what, most of the kids who do their courses through us instead of going to regular school are kids who are in prison for some reason, and they can't go. So what's the situation with you? I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of in the same situation. And that's really what it was like. It was like being in prison. It was like being in this dark space with no light, enough air that I could just survive, barely, but not enough to be able to live freely and thrive. And it was like living in constant fear, in constant suffocation. I was insulted, I was humiliated, I was assaulted, and I was told always that it was my fault and that I deserved it. And over time, I started believing that there's something inherently wrong with me, and that's why this is happening to me. But during that entire time, while living in fear, while, you know, going through all of that, there was this little voice in my head that kept saying that maybe one day I can go to school. Maybe that's not a pipe dream. Maybe one day I can actually sit in a classroom. So I finished all my high school courses through the Independent Learning Center at home, and I would do all my house chores during the day and my wifely duties, and then go into my room at night and study, and I would be in heaven. I know that sounds weird, but I've always been a nerd. So I did all my high school courses, and I applied to university, and then I was told that there was no useless money at home to waste on my silly dreams. So my dreams were shattered again, and I couldn't go to school. But then I realized that if I need to go to school, I have to do it my way, and I have to pay for it somehow in my own way. But I can't go to work because going out and getting a job was not allowed. So I started to babysit at home, and the idea actually came to me when I was with my mother-in-law, and we were doing groceries at the local No Frills. And there was this little bulletin board with a sign on it that had babysitting services, and it was like a little ad. And I was like, oh, I can do this. I've got 2 kids of my own. I mean, this is something I can probably turn into a business. So I did. And over time, I developed a clientele, and I started making money. And all my money, I would give it to my husband and his family, or it was taken away from me. But I would still stash a little bit on the side every month, like a couple $100 here or there. And that's how I saved up enough for my first-year tuition fee as a student. And finally, at the age of 26, after almost 10 years of marriage and 2 children, I was sitting in my first ever lecture at the University of Toronto with, thank you. Big goofy smile, tears streaming down my face. I'm thinking, oh my God, is this really happening? Am I actually in school? And then this amazing thing started to happen. People actually wanted to hang out with me. They wanted to be my friend. Like they were like, hey, how did you solve that question? How did you get an A+ on that test? Do you want to go grab chicken wings tomorrow? They're half price in the student cafeteria. Do you want to go grab coffee? Can we join study groups? And initially I would like, you guys don't want to talk to me. I'm not worthy of this connection, so I would run away. But slowly but surely, I felt my walls crumbling, and I would raise my hand in class, answer a question, ask a question, make a new friend, go out for that coffee, study together. And I realized that I was being treated with kindness and respect for the very, very first time in my life because of who I was, not because of what box I needed to fit into or who I belonged to or what role I was serving. And then I would go home and I would be treated with humiliation and insult, and I just wouldn't understand why. So one day, as I was walking in this dilemma on campus, I came across this sign beside the bookstore which had a bunch of questions on it. It said, do you feel intimidated? Do you feel like you've lost your voice, like you're living in fear, like you can't go on, like you can't express your opinions? And I just answered yes, yes, yes to all of them and said, come in and make an appointment. We're here to talk. And up until then, everybody had told me that it was all my fault and I needed to do better somehow. So this was my chance to talk to somebody completely removed from my circle. So I went in, made an appointment, and a few weeks later I was sitting across from my counselor and the floodgates opened and I started sharing what's happening to me, and I'm like, can you tell me what's wrong with me? Like, what do I need to do better? What do I need to change myself? Like, what is that secret to being a good wife that keeps eluding me? And she listened to me go on, and then she said the one sentence that I believe changed my life forever. She said, Samra, it's not your fault. No matter what you do not deserve to be abused. No matter what anyone does, they do not deserve to be abused. It still took me another 3 years of educating myself, getting the knowledge, learning that, yes, I did deserve better. What was happening to me was not my fault. I did have options. I had rights as a woman, and I had the right to be loved and respected for who I was. And what was happening to me had nothing to do with who I was. The way someone treats you has everything to do with them. And that's it. So I eventually one day, I was standing in front of a mirror with a bruise on my face. And instead of reaching for my makeup to cover it up like I normally would, I told myself that I have to leave. If not for me, then for my daughters, because I did not want them to grow up thinking that this was normal. So I took my girls and I left, and I moved to U of T student housing on campus. It was a little tiny apartment with just no AC, the ugliest looking green carpet, and 2 little rooms, but it was mine. And for the very first time, I felt safe at home. And when I was reflecting on all of that, coming back to the skydive story, I realized that what helped me get out of that situation and make that decision to leave was getting knowledge. My knowledge, or getting that knowledge, gave me my power back. When I went to counseling, when I learned all this, when I educated myself, that's what gave me the power to conquer that fear. So I started Googling skydiving. And I was looking up stats and looking up, the accident rates, and found out that actually the risk of fatality from a skydive accident is 0.0007%. It's safer than driving. So I thought, okay, so I'm gathering all this research, getting this knowledge. Okay, maybe this is doable. So the next thing I did, I called Skydive Dubai. And I said, hey, I'm here for 2 days. I'm actually leaving tomorrow, or a day after. I just have tomorrow. I don't have a spot. They're like, well, sorry, we're all booked up until next month. Can't do much. But you're welcome to come and put your name on the wait list in the morning. And if you get a spot, you get a spot, your luck. But just so you know, no one has gotten a spot in the past, several days. I was like, all right, I'll take my chances. So I go the next morning and put my name on the wait list. I was number 5 on the wait list, so there were 4 people ahead of me. And then I started thinking, what was the other thing that helped me in my journey? After I'd left my marriage, I felt very alone. I felt very isolated. And there were times when I felt like going back. I'm like, what did I do? I made a mess of my life. I don't know how I'm going to go on, blah, blah, blah. And at that point, it was the people around me that made me believe in myself because they believed in me. My friends who would show up at my door with like ice cream, or my professors who would champion me and teach me to believe in myself and motivate me, and my mentors who helped me make those critical decisions, which enabled me to eventually succeed and graduate a top student in the university. So I applied that same lesson on that day. Okay, so human connection is what makes us resilient. It's what makes us go. It's what makes us believe in ourselves and conquer our fears. So then I went outside to the place where everybody from the skydive, like everybody was landing, and I started to talk to all the people who were coming back, and it was like their first time jumping out of a plane. They were so happy, and they were like, oh my gosh, it was the best experience ever. You know, we did it. I'm so proud of myself. And I made new friends. I made friends with all the people that were on the wait list because we were all like cheering for each other. And I was like starting to feel better. Yeah, I can do this. Maybe this is not so bad, and all of that. So we were waiting all day. Our names were not announced. And then finally, like, so I got there at 9 a.m. to put my name on the wait list. And then finally at 3 p.m., they started announcing names from the wait list. And a part of me was like, I don't want to hear my name. But then the other part of me was like, I desperately want to hear my name. And at 3:08 p.m., my name. So I was like, oh my gosh, you know, what if I'm like that first accident waiting to happen at Skydive Dubai? What if my harness breaks? You know, this is the stupidest thing I've ever thought of. Like, what am I thinking? What's going to happen to my children if I die? Like, all these crazy ideas. And I met Carlos, who was my tandem instructor, and I absolutely fell in love. He made me feel so safe and everything. I'm like, you know what? Maybe this is doable. So before I even could think twice, I quickly signed all the forms, I paid, and the next thing I know, I was on the plane, and we went up to 13,000, and all fear went away. And I thought, you know what? I've done a lot in my life. I can do this too. So with a big, big, huge smile on my face, I jumped. And it was the most liberating experience ever. And in that moment, I realized that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is feeling afraid and doing it anyway. And remember in the beginning, I shared my friend told me that her first skydive was life-changing? For me, it was not that. For me, it was valuable because I had already created the life that I wanted and deserved for myself. And the biggest gift for me that day was like, this woman, this girl who was denied the most basic freedom all her life, was now flying like a free and fearless badass. And that girl is my hero. I am my hero. Because we all need to be our own heroes. We don't need anyone else. We just need permission from ourselves. And when you give yourself that permission, you become unstoppable. Thank you, guys.